When death approached and looked aside, leaving her rest, leaving her rest against the reeding shore. Oh, sang harder than lost and sang no more. Farewell, old joys. Farewell, old joys. Oh, death, come close my eyes. Oh, Jesus, come down, more blue than white. The silver swans, the silver swans, living, living, God, no, when death across, when death silent road. Farewell, old joys. Farewell, old joys. Farewell, joys. Oh, death, Mogies and swans, now, more fools when death approached and took her silent leaving her rest, leaving her rest against the reedy shore. Now sang her first and last, and sang no more. Farewell, joys. Farewell, joys. Oh, death, come close my eyes. More geese and swans now live, more fools than wise. second is dryness. Some of you know that quote from Hildegard's opinion. And we thought water is needed through the vessel of the chant de pleurs. You have a little flyer on the seat, which is French for singing, crying, or tear songs. I've had the privilege of working with Claire Whisker and Charlotte Still over a number of years. My name's Jane Trowell. I'm from a group called Platform. I've done a lot of work about water over many years, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm very happy to introduce Claire and Charlotte, who live in the area and have created 5 extraordinary festivals about water over the past 5 years called Water Week. So would you like to introduce?
This first bit that is written here tells a bit about our building with water. So I think Claire will read about it. Together, the two of us have been following an organic process where thinking about and being with water will take us. A water wandering, inquisitive, interactive, immersive, reflective, poetic, experiential, unexpected, spontaneous and flowing. On the way, we constantly look for ways to share the experience and convey rapidly growing concerns and reverence for water. And through Water Week, we mix the practical, the mythical, the artistic, and invite conversation, appreciation, and education in surprising ways and places. This is just a brief description of Water Week. It's a project that we started in 2012, so we're now, we've done 5 water weeks. So our first project, Stream, was a search for the sources of the River Cuckmere, which is the next river to the east from here. It was near Helsham. It was inspired by a simple wish to find out where our water came from, the water that we drink and bathe in. And we had heard a memory of a funeral of 2 friends meeting each year to walk from the source of the river to the mouth, and that we were both at this funeral, and we'd only just met, and this inspired both of us, and I think then led into this desire to find out where the water came from. So the stream became a series of regular contemplative walks and returns to about 10 streams and sources north of Cowreach in East Sussex. Our findings and questionings led to the creation of Water Week. Water Week is a week-long free festival for everyone to enjoy and learn more about water, where many different artists and water-knowledgeable people were invited to present and create in an empty shop that we were gifted by Helsham Town Council. So that was the first one, and it came out of our desire to just know more about water. We found that through our weeks and months of walking and photographing, filming, writing, that nothing seemed big enough to really convey what we were feeling. So, and from then on, we did Water Week each year in March, and the main subject changed slightly. So, but it was
the second week, we went from the empty front shop in Hailsham. Second week, we had a residency in Westminster Castle. So the whole second Water Week was actually in Westminster Castle, and they gave us the castle for a week. So that was a huge amount of different speakers and music and dancing and all sorts of things. And the third one, that was quite overwhelming to organise, I can tell you, because all of this is done as gift economy, so there's no money involved anywhere. Third one, we did a walk from the source of the Wallace Haven, which is above my house, all the way through the Pevensey levels to the sea at Norman's Bay over 7 days, where we invited people to come every day to join us on the walk, and we had a person from a different faith talking each day about water and faith. And then each night in some odd place or odd parish church, we would show a film about water. So that's our third week. And then fourth week is about ponds, because during this, I decided that having ponds is the quickest way to make biodiversity. And so I have got a beautiful pond in my garden, and People Pond had made it. And we did a week about ponds, and we visited 47 ponds in a week. And as a direct result, I think quite a few ponds were actually built. So that's a surprise for that.
This year was about wastewater, so we did learned a lot about sanitation, and we had a series of laboratory performances running throughout the week to interspersed with informational events.
So, I mean, what interests me about this, and why I've sort of got curious and involved, is that this is almost like a Skillshare, peer-to-peer learning. You know, it's the gift economy. So these two artists, with a concern, looked for people with expertise, which could be somebody ranging from somebody with ponds or an expert in ponds, like Pizza Pond, an artist person, through to somebody studying nuclear, the impacts of nuclear waste on water, and organising a week where artists and scientists and concerned people can share knowledge. And I think that's a really inspiring model that we can all think about. It doesn't take much it takes a lot of work, but it doesn't take much to leap to that point of how do I raise that awareness in my community, and also commitment to your communities around here in East Sussex. I wonder if you could talk just briefly about why artists have something to offer in terms of water awareness, what it is that artists bring to that. We've had 3 presentations, all very creative, very inspirational, very artistic in some terms, but what is it about the experience of working with artists that can add to water, the understanding of issues facing us today around water?
We went to a symposium at the beginning, before our first water week, and the only water, there was people talking about water for hours on end, but the only water that was evident was in the glasses and the plastic bottles, and it just felt very dry. I think that artists or art and music can give a fluidity or give some wetness to it. Flow, perhaps.
Well, I think yes, and I think flow is really there because an artist, hopefully, is flowing across all sorts of boundaries at all times. I think, for me, that's one of the wonderful things. Charlotte and I started this project walking in the early mornings to find these sources of the streams. We were never stopped because we were 2 middle-aged ladies and we weren't going to do anything that was a problem. So, things like that you go, that's an advantage that you may not have at other times. But we're artists, so we can cross boundaries. And that is where water is such a beautiful unifier because it can flow to any direction you want.
Can you think about, can you tell us something about a vivid moment where you were very shocked or something unexpected happened that changed the way you thought about water, or an encounter that provoked you, or something that you wish you'd done differently, something chewy? Because you have organised probably 100 events over 5 years. Something vivid.
The change the view.
Well, I have to say, one of the last ones, the first, was about, we had a nuclear water waste expert who came and stood and just presented us what was happening exactly around us and going, you're this close to Dungeness, I don't really want to say anything. And it was absolutely a clear amount of facts that were incredibly overwhelming. And then immediately afterwards, we had a storyteller tell a myth about water as life. And it was not an easy myth, and it wasn't a sort of like, oh, here's something we can do instead. But for me, it was a moment of going, here's all this stuff that we learn, and here's somebody who's actually going, the thing that can help is imagination. And it was a hopeful moment, in a quite difficult situation. And that really struck me because it it was one of those events, it just really worked to kind of shift between logos and mythos and that magic that bringing it all together. So I remember that one, which was more recent.
Charlotte, what? I think from the very first Water Week we had a local historian and he talked to us about the Pevensey levels. And I live right next to the Pevensey levels and have done as a child, since I was a child, but hadn't quite realised the significance of the land and the water there. And throughout time, how it had been a lagoon and then salt marsh and then drained by Dutch engineers in the 1700s, yeah. And how the changing climate has been instrumental in that. So you're just realising that we just can't have that. And you know, how then do we adapt and see the whole of the local landscape and where we've been building and how will it all be affected. I think it just gave me a different view on my local environment in terms of water.
Yes, we both learned that where we both live, Hailsham and Ashburnham, had been on the edges of water all the way round. And yet our whole way of being there had not really, oh yes, that was 1500s, but it's like, oh, there's a long-term view of water coming in and out.
Yes, and that led to our second Water Week because we decided that we would walk around the edge of the old sea, which was 10 miles. The Pevensey Levels is 10 miles across and 10 miles deep. So we walked, not all at once, but we did it in very small steps.
Over the
we walked. I haven't finished it. No. But so from Eastbourne, comes right the way around and goes up towards Preston Street, Grove Street, and back down to Bexhill, Coombe. Yeah, so it took us.
It took us a year, and of course on that journey, as artists, we met all the farmers, which is a wonderful way to, one of our other ways that we've really developed with the water, is that we're sometimes a link between the farmers and like Natural England and all these other people who are trying to get involved with farmers, and somehow we're a link. That's another way the artists can kind of come in.
We get in the back door.
Yeah, we get in the back door. We just.
I think I just wanted to chip in. One of the vivid moments for me as a participant was an artist who lives near here called Christine Binning. You'd asked her to create a piece for toilets in Hailsham. And I know Christine, some of us in the room know Christine, and she, you know, you can always expect top value from her and very unexpected work. And basically all morning she cleaned, she had located and cleaned all the public toilets in Hailsham as her artwork. And then she took us on a tour of the public toilets in Hailsham, which she had cleaned and into which she had placed flowers. And I find it quite emotional actually. So let's go back to the Chant Bleu. Because Christine is very, very political in her thinking, and not only did her research reveal just how few public toilets there are in Hailsham that are left, but also how dirty some of those public toilets were. And as somebody who'd taken care of her mother in her last years, how necessary public toilets are for all kinds of purposes, and you know, as you well know, emergency moments, etc. And it was a very, very subversive, very, very powerful. And it also touched on all the problematics of waterborne sewage, which we can get into in the Q&A. But you know, I think one thing about Water Week and this passionately owned and co-created model that you're putting into the world is these unexpected connections between art, science, environment, politics, land, agriculture, sea level rise, climate change. The Mediterranean, beautiful flyers was of an action man that had been found in a stream near Hailsham, face down, which as a thumbnail to me looks like a body in the Mediterranean. And I hadn't, because it was so small, and we cannot not make these connections. And I think that's what's so powerful in bringing people's imagination and artistry and mythos into the water conversation. I think perhaps we'll come to an end.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your work.